Many Las Vegas residents believe that business practices focused on profit have contributed to pushing the city towards serious challenges. While empty casinos and hotels with fewer guests are the most visible signs, they may only be the beginning of a larger domino effect that could draw the entire city into deeper difficulties. A trip that was advertised as cheap and convenient has now turned into a bill 3 or 4 times higher due to a series of hidden fees. A simple meal or a hotel night has now become a burden. Middle-class tourists, once the lifeblood of Vegas, are quietly turning away. And as the crowds thinned, the empty rows of casinos not only reflected the loss to the tourism industry, but also signaled a direct blow to the local economy. Even more frighteningly, Vegas, in a way, is no longer just Nevada's story. It has become a mirror reflecting the entire United States, where the ripple effect of corporate greed and the abandonment of the vulnerable are sowing a dark future. In today's video, we'll dissect the dark consequences of the Vegas nightmare, from the corporate trap to the nationwide ripple effect, to answer the ultimate question: where will Vegas and America end up? Before we talk about the dark consequences, let's go back to the beginning to see how corporations ruined the Disneyland of gamblers. Vegas was once an adult's dream park. Bright, lively, affordable, and with a place for everyone. But then, right on those neon streets, a sophisticated trap was set. Not at the baccarat table, but at the bill. Do you feel like something is very wrong? A bill in Vegas now looks like a magical dance of numbers. $87 for a portion of pancakes with 2 strawberries, $50 for parking in the hotel's own lot, $300 for a basic room excluding surcharges, and $20 for a cup of coffee, making one wonder, what magic did Vegas put in that cup of coffee to make it so unbelievably expensive? Default resort fees, paid for amenities that most guests don't use, turn the experience from a joyful exploration into a feeling of being cleverly tricked. Costs ballooned by the hour. With each card swipe, the visitor's trust thinned by another layer. A 49-year-old man who just arrived in Vegas 2 days ago recounted, "With these add-ons, be prepared to pay double the advertised room rate. I won't be going back to Reno or Vegas again. My local casinos have everything they do, and instead of spending $300 a night just to sleep, I can drive home." That share wasn't just a lament about money, but about feeling betrayed. The feeling that this city no longer welcomed ordinary customers like him. Upon first encountering these exorbitant fees, many people tried to think, could it be due to tariffs or federal policies under President Donald Trump that made everything more expensive? There might be some truth to that somewhere. But behind that fog of blame lies a larger and clearer calculation, a deliberate strategy of maximizing profits by hotel and casino corporations. Vegas has long had different treatment for ordinary and high-end guests, understandable since it's tied to spending power. But in Vegas today, that line has thickened into a wall and even become an injustice. In the same space, at the same table, high-class guests have personal staff, free drinks, and a warm welcome, while ordinary guests can only stand in front of soulless machines and have to pay for the drink that was once free. It's no longer a service difference. It's discrimination proportional to the thickness of your wallet. Casinos have quietly implemented a filtering campaign, focusing on high rollers, the whales who can bring in 80% of profits from 20% of customers, instead of maintaining a steady stream from millions of average guests. They believe that fewer customers who spend more is safer than many customers who spend less. And so, the common customer was no longer the central focus. They became an old coat in the closet, only taken out to wear when there was no other choice. Vegas has become a closed playground for the few, abandoning the mass appeal that once made it a legend. In that arena, perhaps we, ordinary people, no longer have a place. That's how a city once for everyone gradually shrinks, hidden behind the glitz of a money-making machine for the minority. If Vegas turns into a trap instead of a dream, who would want to go back? And when the tourists turn their backs, what will this city live on? But even so, the visitors' feelings of emptiness and betrayal are only the first layer of consequences. Because behind the neon lights, a more enduring social story awaits, As the money dries up, the shadows of the dark corners emerge, and the ones who pay the highest price are not the businesses nor the tourists, but the residents of this city. As the neon-lit streets slowly fade into darkness, do you see what's behind them? That is the tents, vices and fears that permeate every corner of the city. The entertainment glitz obscures the stark truth that Vegas's local economy is overly reliant on tourism. The Las Vegas Review-Journal reports that the leisure and hospitality industry accounts for approximately 27% of the workforce in southern Nevada, significantly higher than the national average of about 11%. When tourism falters, the pendulum immediately swings in the opposite direction. Casino and hotel revenue plummets, shifts are cut, and layoffs hit like a hot wind in the desert, fast, harsh, and difficult to anticipate. Of course, and as always, the first to bear the brunt are the ordinary working people: waiters, housekeepers, drivers, security guards, those who live on hourly wages, with little or no long-term savings because their already meager incomes barely cover rent and meals. Losing their source of income, they immediately switch to counting every penny, skipping meals, postponing prescriptions, and pushing bills to next month. But as prices continued to soar while wages disappeared, that chain of calculations only led to a bleak outcome: losing their homes to return to and sliding straight onto the streets, where the neon lights were only bright enough to illuminate their helplessness. This is not a threat. According to the Southern Nevada Homeless Continuum of Care, as of early 2025, nearly 8,000 homeless individuals were recorded in Clark County, and the actual number could be even higher if you include those sleeping in broken-down vehicles, sheltering in culverts, or under overpasses. Many of them were once indispensable cogs in this tourism machine. A single mother who cleaned rooms, a shuttle driver who took guests from the airport to the Strip, a veteran who once believed his country wouldn't abandon him. Ironically, in a city with approximately 150,000 hotel rooms, there are thousands of people who cannot find a safe place to rest their heads. A tourist returning to Vegas in 2025 wrote, "The greedy people in this city deserve to be abandoned like this, but at the same time, I also feel sorry for the residents living here." Even more frightening, as many people lose their homes and income. Petty crimes, theft, mugging, fraud, tend to increase. Casinos and resorts became natural targets, places where cash is concentrated and visitors are vulnerable. Numerous reports describe the Strip as a hotspot for security incidents. It's estimated that the risk of becoming a victim is 31.4 per 100,000 residents, a figure often cited to rank Vegas among the cities of concern regarding safety. Casinos and resorts therefore became natural targets. Where cash is abundant, tourists are engrossed in experiences, and vulnerability is just a moment away. When the homeless environment is dense, other social problems also follow like shadows: vices, toxins, and even dangerous situations simmering beneath the surface. Las Vegas is still hailed as the entertainment capital, but the very rhythm of its nightlife, compounded by a decline in tourism, has opened up countless loopholes for illegal activities. This vice piled upon vice, a sense of unease permeated every street corner, and not a few people gave Vegas a bitter nickname: the despair capital of America. Tourists' fear makes them hesitant to return. Fewer visitors mean the tourism industry weakens further, leading to more shifts being cut, additional layoffs, and pushing more people out of their homes. The vicious cycle of tourism collapses, crime increases, tourists leave, tightens around the city like a rope, adding another knot each day. Can this downward spiral be stopped, or is it just beginning? Let's look at the people who are straining to keep Vegas running. In the next part, we'll see how they get stuck. Can you imagine a hotel housekeeper having to sleep in their car right after work? This seemingly absurd image is actually happening right in Las Vegas, the city of dazzling lights and luxurious casinos. Behind the glittering facade, tens of thousands of service workers are trapped in a vicious cycle, working harder but receiving less and less in return. While revenue for hotel and casino corporations continued to rise due to cost-cutting, workers, The very people who keep this machine running were unable to afford a minimum standard of living. According to Nevada Current, 2024, the average hourly wage for hotel employees in Vegas is $6. It sounds acceptable at first, but in reality, compared to the average rent of around $700 per month, that figure is beyond the affordability of most service workers. The gap between income and the cost of living is widening, forcing many families to face a bitter choice: pay rent or buy medicine. The consequences are more widespread than people thought. Many workers are deciding to leave the city and seek out lower-cost areas, even if it means giving up long-term jobs. Staff shortages are every place. Hotel rooms are slow to be cleaned, restaurants lack servers, and services are no longer as complete as before. Tourists who once came to Vegas seeking absolute convenience are starting to complain more. A city built on customer experience is losing its greatest strength. Some businesses have started offering support solutions, such as personal financial counseling programs or practical products to help families balance their spending. Healthcare financial models from large corporations like Prudential or United Health are considered a potential direction, helping workers regain some peace of mind. However, these solutions only scratch the surface and are not enough to break the cycle that has been deeply rooted for too long. How can a city function when the very people who maintain it don't have enough to live on? And what happens if those people keep leaving empty buildings with only the lights on but no soul? The answer is evident in every meal and every roof. Things that should be basic but are now a burden. In Vegas, a roof over your head and a warm meal have now become a luxury. The statement might sound exaggerated, but for thousands of residents here, it's the stark truth. In a city once hailed as an entertainment paradise, the simplest needs, shelter and a meal, are becoming unsolvable problems. Rental prices in Las Vegas have skyrocketed at an alarming rate. According to the Zillow Rental Report 2024, rental costs increased by 35% in just 5 years, significantly higher than the national average. The reasons are not only due to the demand for tourism and population movement, but also because of the wave of investors buying up real estate, turning each small apartment into a long-term profit source. Meanwhile, food, which is supposed to be the most familiar and essential thing, is also becoming increasingly expensive. Data from the US Department of Agriculture, USDA 2024, shows that food prices in Nevada are 12% higher than the national average. A box of milk, a loaf of bread, or a few pounds of vegetables have now become a concern every time you step into the supermarket. The older generation, who once knew an America where the small house and warm dinner were the norm, now have to witness a heartbreaking reversal. They used to believe that hard work would guarantee a roof over their heads, but in Vegas today, even those who work their whole lives aren't sure they can keep a rented room and a full table. It was a break in trust, not just in statistics, but in the memories and lived experiences of an entire generation. The image of an empty dining table set in front of a TV screen showing the brightly lit and bustling Las Vegas becomes an unmistakable metaphor. It raises a big question. Does the opulence the world sees on screen truly represent Vegas, or is it just a backdrop concealing a weary reality? When even a meal becomes a burden, who is Vegas even a city for? And when basic life is eliminated, where will society crack first? The answer lies in the increasingly unbridgeable gap between rich and poor. On the same street, a billionaire sits in a VIP room, while just a few steps away, a family sleeps in a tent. In Las Vegas, that contrast is no longer a metaphor, but a nightly spectacle. On one side are luxurious suite rooms where a glass of champagne costs the equivalent of a worker's entire week's salary. Across the way, beneath the jackpot $1 Million Dreams billboard, were tents trembling in the desert wind. Vegas, more than any other place, most clearly exposes the growing gap between rich and poor that is tearing America apart. The result is a divided and increasingly tense society. Those at the bottom of the income ladder are losing faith, feeling excluded from the game, while those at the top are becoming increasingly isolated within walls of security and privilege. Dissatisfaction accumulates, creating an environment prone to riots or social unrest. Vegas, originally built as the stage of dreams, now reveals the stark truth that when the gap between rich and poor widens too far, common community values become a luxury. The image of tents under the $1 million dreams billboard has become a symbol of this paradox. It reminds us that the $1 million dream only holds meaning for a select few, while the vast majority are struggling to keep a roof over their heads through the winter. That's the real Vegas, a city that lives on luxury, but is threatened precisely by that luxury. Some social organizations and charities are working to bridge the gap, from financial literacy programs for workers to housing and food assistance projects. Nevertheless, compared to the scale of the crack, these efforts are like temporary patches on an ever-widening wound. When the gap between rich and poor becomes a chasm, who is strong enough to build a bridge? Or is this the breaking point that will cause Vegas to collapse? And if Vegas can't find the answer, is it foreshadowing a larger story for the entire United States? If you want to see a microcosm of what's happening across the United States, look at Las Vegas, a city built to shine 24/7, but its light is becoming so blinding that it obscures the spreading darkness. Vegas not only reflects its own unique problems, but also serves as a warning to other cities. Greed and social inequality can create a chain reaction that is difficult to control. On the surface, Vegas remains a place where money flows freely. Hotel, casino, and real estate corporations continue to report impressive profits. But as you delve deeper into life, you'll see signs of a spreading vortex. When the cost of living far exceeds the average salary, Nevada isn't the only one affected. Cities that rely on tourism and services, from Miami to New Orleans, are also seeing a similar pattern. Workers are being pushed out, while housing and food prices are constantly escalating. Imagine this chain of reactions. When workers are forced to leave the city because they can't afford rent, the service industry lacks staff. When the service industry declines, tourists gradually decrease. When tourists leave, revenue drops, leading to further job cuts. It's a spiral that doesn't stop at Nevada. Many small towns that rely on tourism or the entertainment industry have begun to face a similar situation, from empty hotel rooms to local shops being forced to close. Vegas, with tents springing up right next to billion-dollar billboards, is no longer an exception. It's a reminder that if other cities don't change, a similar scenario could be repeated anywhere. Social discontent, when it accumulates long enough, won't just be complaints. It can turn into direct conflicts, shaking the very foundation upon which society rests. Some large corporations have begun to see this risk. Walmart, for example, has implemented essential food subsidy programs for low-income communities. Organizations like Fidelity are expanding financial advisory services to help families manage spending in the face of rising costs. These solutions cannot completely heal the rift, but they at least show that efforts are being made to bridge the gap and prevent the cycle of instability from spreading further. If Vegas is just a mirror, what is America seeing in it? And will anyone be brave enough to change while the cracks are still repairable, or will we let them become irreparable fissures? Imagine this. A city once as vibrant as neon lights in the desert is now silent, with empty hotels, streets filled with tents, and casinos, symbols of hope and opportunity, becoming cold buildings. It's not just a fictional scenario, but a growing obsession as Vegas loses the foundation it once stood on. And the more important question, if Vegas collapses, where will America go? Over the past few decades, Las Vegas has consistently been considered an economic barometer, a place that most quickly reflects prosperity or decline. As money flowed in, the city boomed. But as costs soared and injustice deepened, even Vegas became a victim of the very model it had once benefited from. A dangerous cycle began to emerge. Workers left the city, tourists dwindled, revenue declined, and finally, confidence wavered. Not just Nevada, many cities that rely on consumption, entertainment, or tourism are also at risk of following a similar trajectory. If you look at the previous generation, the comparison is even more painful. In the 1970s and 80s, a stable job could support an entire family, allowing parents to save for their children's education. Today, for the same job, income is not enough to pay rent, not to mention healthcare, food, and education costs. Older Americans witnessing this change carry with them a sense of skepticism. Will the American dream they once lived through still exist for their grandchildren? That bleak future wasn't just in the economy, but also in the social spirit. When faith in fairness is eroded, the consequences are division, skepticism, and instability. Experts warn that a society where the gap between rich and poor widens will become more difficult to control and more prone to explosions. Vegas, in this context, is a reminder that no one is outside the vortex. However, even in the darkest corners, there are still efforts to find ways to adjust. Some large corporations like Microsoft have ramped up digital skills training programs for middle-aged and older workers, helping them adapt to the new economy. These initiatives, while not yet able to turn the tide, at least open a path for those left behind to have a chance to reintegrate. Because if we only rely on the market's self-regulation, the gap will only widen. The future of Vegas, and of America as a whole, lies not in the glitz and glamour or the quarterly profit figures, but in our ability to uphold fundamental values: a roof over our heads, a meal on the table, a living wage, and a belief that hard work deserves to be rewarded. If those things disappear, no matter how bright the neon lights are, they will only illuminate an empty reality. So the lingering question remains: will America choose to let cities like Vegas continue to spiral into injustice? Or will it dare to build a new path before trust is swept away forever? Today, Las Vegas is not just a city of lights and gambling. It is a mirror reflecting an America grappling with deep cracks within its society. From rooftops and meals to work and beliefs, everything is being eroded by imbalance and limitless greed. This story doesn't stop in Nevada. It touches every family, every generation, and raises questions about the future we are leaving behind. If even a place once considered a symbol of wealth cannot hide the tents of workers, what awaits other cities? Do we still have enough time to mend the cracks, or will we have to witness a dark future spreading across the country? What do you think? What is the limit this society can endure before it is forced to change? If you find this story thought-provoking, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue to seek answers to the most difficult questions of our time together. The content of this video is created for the purpose of providing information and stimulating reflection on social phenomena, and is not intended to draw absolute conclusions or accuse any individuals or organizations. The data, stories, and characters mentioned are primarily illustrative, cited from public sources, and may not be entirely complete. We do not provide financial, legal, or policy advice. Viewers are encouraged to engage in multifaceted discussions, respect differences, and form their own opinions.